Hello, I'm Barry Malfors. I'm the chairman of the policy committee for the Department of Disabilities and Special Needs, also the vice chairman of the commission. I realize this is a different time than we normally have a meeting, so if you were tuning in for something else, you got us. And the last time you tuned in, which would be the normal time you would have tuned in for the policy committee, you got the finance committee, if those that don't know, but that'll be switching around next month to where our policy committee will be at the normal time when it normally is, or normal day when it normally is. And the finance committee will be a different time that has not yet been announced. But I'd like to thank everybody for coming, or I shouldn't say coming because there's nobody else here except staff. But I will say that I thank everybody for tuning in who is interested in what we do. And with that, I will call the meeting to order and ask for the statement of announcement to be read, please.
A meeting notice announcing the date, time, and place of the March 16th, 2022 Policy Committee meeting was distributed on March 14th to appropriate media and other groups or individuals who have requested notification. The announcement and agenda were posted at the Department of Disabilities and Special Needs Central Administrative Office and on the website. The public has been notified that accommodations such as interpreters, mobility assistants, or other assistance will be provided to individuals with disabilities and special needs if requested in advance.
Thank you. David, are you with us? I hadn't heard your voice yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. Very good.
The next item on the agenda is the invocation, which I do each month, and I'll do another time here very quickly. If we all let us pray. Dear Lord, help us to help those with disabilities through our policy committee today. We'd ask that you would keep everybody safe in the rain as they go back home tonight. We know there's going to be a lot of rain. We would ask that everybody that's here and everybody that helps with those with disabilities, and even all those that are on the line today, you would keep them safe and protect them through the rain. We ask that you would be with us today and give us the wisdom that we need in order to do what is the right thing for people with disabilities and the taxpayers of the state. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. The next item on the agenda relates to, I think everybody who listens to our meetings know that we operate this meeting by what's called unanimous consent. And you can learn more about that if you want to in the 12th edition of the Robert's Rules of Order, page 48. The next item, but the actual next item on the agenda is the approval of the January 11th meeting minutes. But before we get into that, let me say I apologize. We have a new member of our committee. It is Ed Miller. Ed Miller, our commission member, Mr. Miller, I should say. Commissioner Miller is our new commission member. Not commission member, but our new committee member once Mr. Gary Lamel was replaced by the governor. So with another person. So we needed another member. And who else would we have chosen but Ed? So so he is our new member, and we appreciate the efforts he will make on our committee going forward. And we all obviously always appreciate David, who has always stuck with me throughout this entire time that we have been on our policy committee together for over 2 years now. And I am, of course, thankful for him as well. But I wanted to mention that Mr. Miller is part of Commissioner Miller is part of our committee. And the next item is the approval of the next item should be approval of the agenda. Yeah, the next item is the approval of the agenda, which if I do not hear an objection, the agenda will be approved as written, and I'll give us 3 seconds or so to decide that. The agenda is approved as written. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the January meeting. I have read them and they look fine to me. So therefore, if there is no objection, we will move forward and assume they are approved as written. So I'm gonna give you 3 seconds to decide that too. Hearing no objection, the minutes of the last meeting are approved as written. And the next item is, on the agenda is the Code of Conduct Policy. It's under old business in tab 2 for those that have a notebook like me. Because I love paper, it gets along with me much better. And I think David too, so we have that in common along with other things. But there's only a couple of things on there that I wanted to bring to the attention that we might want to consider making a slight edit to. One is that it says the gifts given on page 5. It says gifts given to coworkers, employer and coworkers are not prohibited. Gifts are prohibited as long as they are not intended to violate the ethics policies of this directive. I'm not sure it should say not intended. I think it should say as long as they do not violate. I don't think anybody I don't think most people intend to break the law. So it probably should say they just do not violate. Does anybody on the commission have an objection to that? I mean, on the committee?
What's the definition of intended?
It means you meant to do it.
Beyond that, how do you define? I imagine this is a legal question. How do you define intended? If I did something, I give a gift out to Director Fry, how do you know my intention?
That's why I'm saying, I don't think it should say not intended to violate. I think it should say do not violate. I think it should take the word intended out, because we don't know what they intended. That's what I'm concerned about. I don't know what they intended to do or didn't intend to do, so I just think we should say just as long as it does not violate the policy.
I think that would be appropriate. Then they can go back to statute, am I right?
I think you just take out the word intended, right?
This is pulled directly from the Code of Ethics statute, so it may be that
Okay, there's a definition
there,
underneath that.
and why the word intended is
Right.
in there, so I don't want to delete it.
No. I agree.
Yeah. I don't want to delete it, Commissioner Malphurs, without, doing some further research.
Correct.
Because maybe intent is an element of, like, you have to intend to, violate the ethics.
Okay, well, we'll leave it like it is, and just get back to me at some point and let me know what you found out, because it just doesn't seem to me that makes much. It just seems to me like that's just more ambiguity that we try to fight against for these policies, but the other thing on this directive I wanted to mention was on page 6, I think. Yeah, it says the reporting should be done as soon as possible. Shouldn't we give that a number of days instead of just saying as soon as possible? Because what does as soon as possible mean?
Page 6.
Talks about when you're reporting an incident under recusal. Why does it say reporting is, anyway, yeah, that's it.
I mean, we could have date, but
But I've
I just think
seen
you
where
say a
they
number of
say,
days or a number of, I don't care how many, I'm not stuck on how many days you use, but I just think it should say within 10 days, 5 days, whatever days, instead of saying as soon as possible, because as soon as possible would mean anything to anybody.
I've seen the word human, I've seen that written in law before.
Well, I just don't like the ambiguity of it. Just asking what we think. David, what do you think about that? You think we need to put a number of days there, like 5 or 10 or whatever?
No, I'm actually looking for where we are. I'm
sorry,
still on page 5.
6 of
We're on page
that
6.
policy, which is in section 2 of your under, section 2, under, of the code of conduct, provision.
We're on page 6 that has to do with recusal and definitions, or am I in the wrong section?
Recusal and the definition of that. See where it says, in the red, it says,
Yeah.
things should occur as soon as possible.
Yeah.
I was trying
What
to
is
put a number of days in there when it should occur instead of as soon as possible. Because I don't know I don't think anybody in here knows exactly what the word as soon as possible means. Depends on who you talk to.
Yeah, because the more ambiguous you leave it, a judge, pretend like you're in front of a judge. I've seen it so many times. You know, if he says, well, the legislature didn't give me anything because, you know, it's left up to my discretion. And so they'll go with the most lenient possible, assuming the legislature meant it to be very lenient. So unless you put a time in, what you're saying is, or what we would be saying if we adopted this, in essence, this is not criminal, but we, in essence, would be saying, you know, you can do kind of what you want to, just make sure you get it reported sometime. And
Exactly.
so there wouldn't be any repercussion. You could put in 10 days or 14 days or something like that.
I think so.
Would tighten it up. You know, and think of it from the perspective of somebody who's got a question about it. You know, if I saw as soon as possible, I'd think they really aren't that serious about it. I mean,
Exactly.
maybe nobody will notice if I just, you know, sort of let it slip. But if it put a time frame, then okay, I better send a note or something.
Exactly. So can we say, let's say 14 days? That sound good to you?
You know, something, yeah, 14, 10.
Referring to calendar days, business days?
We can do either one. I would say calendar days is enough, but do 14 calendar days.
Calendar days are easier to count than business days.
I think so too.
The other thing is, do you want to say within 14 days of what? Learning?
Of learning of the incident. 14 days of learning and or report, you know, try to learn the events again.
Identification of the conflict or something like
That's
that.
right. That's right. Identification. That's good. Probably need to get.
I just don't want it to be
We misinterpreted. That's exactly right.
misinterpreted that it's 14 days from the act, that it's 14 days from when you know that you realize you identify there's a conflict.
That's right. When you identify there's a problem. That's right. I'm not necessarily saying 14 days from when it happened because you don't know when it happened.
Right.
I agree with that. The only other thing I was going to mention, and I'm sorry to go backwards, is on page 5 of the same thing, of the same policy, is that it says that gifts are not prohibited as long as they are not intended to violate the law, violate. And I just wondered if we ought to put in here, because in other places in this policy, it talks about that you can get a plaque of $150 or less. I just wonder if we should say a dollar value that people can get without violating the policy, like a gift of $150 or a gift of, just like we do with the plaques in here and things of that nature. So should we put a dollar value? Because if somebody gives somebody a $5,000 gift, that might mean something other than a $50 gift, if you understand what I'm saying.
So I think the whole given by your coworkers is where you have to consider put a dollar value in there.
Right.
You know, if Constance is my friend and I give her something else, you know, it's not about employees. It's not about the fact that we're coworkers. If you put a dollar value in there, you put a limit on what I can share with somebody who I may have a personal relationship with outside of work.
Correct. So if I, for example, want to give Dr. Fry $5,000, we can't limit that. Not that I would give Dr. Fry $5,000, but the $150 says that like the agency can't spend more than $150 on employees. But most of this comes out of statute. So there's no restriction in the statute as it's currently written for gifts, the amount between friends and coworkers.
Well, I know it's not a restriction in the.
Well,
I'm sure it's not a restriction in the law, but we could make a restriction if we wanted to as a commission on disability special needs.
So you wanna tell me as an employee that if I decide I wanna give Dr. Fry a gift of $5,000, I can't do that?
I think if you did that, I think it should be investigated as a possible ethics violation.
Why?
Because it's a lot of money. And because you
Well,
can
Think about it.
influence people
Think about it
with
like
how much
this.
money you give them.
Think about it like this. Constance is in my office and she says, man, my cell phone just stopped working, right? My
Yeah.
cell phone's not working. I say, Constance, who do you have your cell service with? And she says Verizon. And I say, you know what? I have this iPhone. I used to have Verizon. I'm not using it anymore. You can have it. You don't have to pay me for it. The value of this iPhone might be $900, $1,000 because these things are expensive. But if we put something in here, I can't really do that. So that's all I'm just trying to point out that if you put something in there, you kind of limit the interactions between like coworkers and friends.
I think we should stick with state statute.
Yeah, I think we would be going past, like, we would be broadening it such that we're going past the intent, state statute.
So the intent, so then you think the intent of the state statute is to allow anybody to give whatever they want to whoever they want to?
If it's a gift, you're seeing this.
Okay, the legislature can't give a cup of coffee to somebody.
You seem to be
People in the
suggesting.
Well, yeah, exactly. We've got a no cup of coffee rule that was enacted about, what, 15, 17 years ago.
That's right.
And, that's a lobbyist. A lobbyist could not give even a cup of coffee to a legislator. So that's the standard. I mean, it's a very strict standard, about donations. You know, what lobbyists can do. If you wanted to adopt that standard, then you could just say, you know, no gift shall be appropriate or allowed unless they have no market value. You could maybe do that.
I know we could do a lot of things, but all I was trying to do was put some kind of a value on it. And because right now it has none. So I just think you could influence people with the amount of a gift you could give them.
My recommendation is that if you choose to put a dollar value on, that you would only have that apply to if individuals are not parallel. So if you wouldn't want someone giving their supervisor for whom they might want to be seeking a promotion or
That's right.
to be saved from potential investigation or disciplinary action.
Right.
But what I wouldn't want to do would, you know, from a policy perspective, I would want to be mindful, and maybe even a little bit from a legal perspective, to limit the ability of parallel or supervisors and subordinates to have the ability to share gifts where that level of potential influence isn't present. There's still language that the gift cannot be intended to violate ethical principles. So there is some language there to try to prevent someone from trying to influence, but at the same time, just being mindful of the example that Lori gave, or just their recognition that there are people who have worked in places together for 20, 30 plus years. They want to get, so maybe they've watched someone's child grow up and it's high school graduation. I worry, unless you're going to use a really high number, which might defeat the purpose. So that would be my recommendation, is that it only apply if it's someone who's in a supervisory position.
I don't have any problem with that. That's more of what I was getting at than what we were just talking about. I don't have any problem with that. The only question is, what value would we put on it? And you get what she's saying, David? I think that sounds logical to me. What I was trying to get to is somebody that was trying to get some influence from somebody that was higher up than them more than anything, although it could be anybody, but more than likely it'd be somebody that was higher up than them trying to get a promotion or something like that. I just think you have to be very careful with this when you consider what the legislature did about this cup of coffee thing and all that. And they were serious about it. I think they got absurd, but that's just my opinion. But And when you look at that standard, I just think we need to consider some sort of even if it's a $500 limit or a $1,000 limit, it still should be some limit.
Is it possible that we can look at some of the other state agencies and see what they are doing
Yeah.
before we make a
And most
decision?
of this is mirrored from all of the other state agencies. Like, we looked at, when we drafted this policy, at least 5 other state agencies.
And none of them had a dollar value in there. Do you hear what she said, David? None of them have a dollar value in any of the 5 they pulled supposedly. It's amazing to me.
Well, I mean, you
Share
could
that.
put this is the same problem that we had. I mean, I was part of the drawing up the legislation. How do you assess an appropriate dollar value? Nobody could come up with it. So the final conclusion was, okay, you just can't give anything to a legislator, nothing. If you're a lobbyist. So you could narrow the definition. So now a lobbyist principal could on an event for a legislator, but not the lobbyist. And the lobbyist can't go out trying to find the money, in theory. All he can tell the lobbyist principal is that guy was very beneficial to us, period, and leave it alone.
Right.
So, I mean, when we start looking at amounts, and even the idea that I had a little while ago of market value, better just to say that, to define the categories of the people you're talking about, they just can't give gifts to, to their superiors, for instance. And it's awkward sometimes. I mean, you're having lunch with somebody, and if he happens to be a lobbyist for one minor entity, he can't buy you anything, or he's just broken the ethics law. It's just the way it is. It's very awkward, and whoever we're talking about, doesn't, in a sense, doesn't make sense. Well, neither from a strict interpretation, why is it so excessive? And it's because we couldn't find how to define all the caveats to loopholism, except for. And it was finally just, okay, no cup of coffee. And it was draconian, but I think it's been pretty effective. Anyway, I can live with anything, because all those that we're talking about, the cell phone and all that stuff sounded like pretty good arguments to me. So
you think we should just leave it as just like it is now, or you think we should make some sort of correction or some sort of an amendment to this? Is what I guess I'm asking. It's obvious you're going to be the deciding vote here.
Reread how it was written.
Well, it's written to say, it's just written to say that you can't violate, well, I should read it again, I guess. If you're not intended to violate, gifts are prohibited as long as they're not intended to violate the ethics principles of this directive. And there was another place in here that talked about values, and I was just trying to make it to where if somebody, we set the value, it talks about plaques in here, and you can't receive a plaque of over $150. And I was just, we're talking about things of value, and I was just talking about that we needed to, that if somebody which Dr. Fry was much better at it than me, but what I was trying to say was if somebody was a subordinate, was a supervisor of somebody else, that I wouldn't want them to be giving a lot of gifts to their supervisor in an attempt to get some sort of promotion. And I was just trying to put some sort of a dollar value on that, or say you can't give it all, which is fine with me. I mean, I don't give you at Christmas time because of this same reason, even though I'd love to. And if we're off the commission, I'll make it up to you some of these days. But I don't do it right now because of that. And I don't want anybody to think that I'm giving anybody anything for any kind of, rules. Because I'd like to give you some. I'd like to give a lot of commission members some, but I don't do it because I don't want anybody to say anything to me.
Well, Christmas gifts you know, if you wanted to start getting into carve-outs. I mean, all
I don't wanna get into
supervisors.
comments. I'm just asking, do you think we should put a value on there, or do you think we should say that people that, it's kind of it'd be kind of a big deal to say that somebody couldn't give a gift at all. But do you think we should put a value on there, or do we, I mean, she's saying that the other ethics policies don't have a value, which is, like I say, it's just shocking to me considering what the legislature did, but if it doesn't, it doesn't.
I mean, what the agency I came from didn't have it either. They copied, just like she said, this is straight from. Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. I mean, I'm just saying at my previous agency, we didn't have a dollar amount. So, I mean, I know that wherever she researched is probably accurate that they didn't.
It says acceptance, well, a good example is it says acceptance of personalized trophies, plaques with a value of less than $150 is not prohibited by this rule. So so then you're saying if we don't put a value on here, then you're saying as long as I give you but if I give you a $500 plaque, that's a violation. But then you're saying I can give you $500 in cash and that's fine. That's what I'm saying. That's where I read this stuff. I mean, I know what it says. So that's what I'm saying. That, to me, that's inconsistent. So I was just trying to make it more consistent and not no ambiguity about what that value should be. If it's $150 for a plaque, it should be $500 for anything or $300 for anything.
By the way,
Nothing.
just to Barry,
Yes,
Barry, to come up with the no cup of coffee rule and all its combinations and permutations took the legislature nearly 2 years. So we might not be able to figure this out one afternoon.
Okay.
We maybe need to carry it.
Decide.
We maybe need to carry this over, and let's see if we can iron it out a little bit more. Maybe staff could help us out a little bit more.
Let's look and see whether there are any other agencies.
Yeah.
We'll look and see if there, leave it at this. We'll say
Yeah.
that we'll leave it like this for now, and if there's, and we'll look at look at 4 or 5 other agencies and see if there's any other things, any other ones that give a dollar value.
And if so, why?
Well, I can tell you why.
No, I want to know the why if some are discovered.
So we're gonna refer to staff to do some research. Okay.
Yeah, so we're
So that's right.
You're
So we're
saying
referring
leave
to
it
staff.
like it is, but you're saying not make the other changes until we're gonna table it, or we're gonna push it through this way and then look at changing it down the road. That's what I'm trying to understand.
Well, we're gonna put it through like it is, and we will then reevaluate it
Right.
depending on what we decide in the next couple
Okay,
months.
that's what I need to know. We're not tabling it,
Right.
we're just not making that change right now.
Right.
Would you like for me to change are not intended to do not for this round of changes?
Yes,
Okay,
yes, absolutely.
okay.
That's why I don't want to, that's why. I
And
don't
the
wanna
change
stop it.
about within 14 days of identification of conflict.
That's right. That's why I don't want to stop it now, because I
Okay.
want to get those in there at least and then go from there.
Okay,
And we can revisit something in a month or 2 or 3 or 1 month. It just depends on what we find and what we decide.
okay.
But I just think somebody needs to look into that a little better. One of our new staff attorneys need to look into that a little more and see what they find out, because it just doesn't make sense to me. But anyway, it's not to mean it's not true, because I'm not always right. But anyway, that was the only other thing I wanted to say about this policy. And otherwise, I don't have any other, I've had enough to say about it, so I'm not gonna spend the rest of the afternoon on it. And the rest of the stuff should not take long. But so what I'm saying is, if I don't hear a motion, if I don't hear an objection, this is gonna be accepted with the changes that we've made, but we're not making a change to the value of the situation, what somebody can give. So that'll be the same as it is right now. The other changes Lori just read out for me. So those will be made, and we'll move on with this policy as it is and put it out for public comment. So, I'm going 3 seconds. If I don't hear any objection, that's what we're gonna do. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the anti-harassment policy, which is 41308DD,
Page,
and it's on page
11.
11.
thank you.
And it's just that the staff realized that this directive needed to include an attachment for ease of access to be able, for somebody to be able to fill out the form. So we're basically attaching the form to this, the new form to this directive. And that's really all we're doing to this directive as far as I understand it. All right. And so if nobody has an objection to attaching this form, then we're going, then. Gonna move on.
Barry?
Yes, sir.
Barry, what, the form you're talking about? The form?
Yes, sir. They're attaching a form to the back. I don't honestly think we have a form, do we?
Yeah, so
I mean,
here's,
we don't have it in the packet.
right, it's not, in the packet,
No,
but here's what we
You're on
did.
page,
just-
you're on page 16, right?
11.
You're on page 16.
11.
No, we're on page 11 of tab, what is
Under
it?
the form, I see attachment harassment complaint form. Is that what we're talking about?
Harassment. Well, we were actually talking about the harassment policy, yeah, the anti-harassment policy, and we are attaching a form to it.
Right.
We're leaving it like it is and attaching this a form to it that gives people the opportunity to fill out a form to file for harassment, correct?
Right, correct.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, there was already a form in existence, but it was located, on our secure, website, employment website, we call it CDSS. It was in a place called Business Tools. So what we did was, instead of just referencing that form is in Business Tools, we made the form a part of the policy by adding it as an attachment so that it would be easier for somebody who wanted to file it to just pull the policy and have the form right there. So it's really just a way to make the policy more user-friendly.
Yeah, I have no problem with that.
Great.
David, you understand what he's saying?
Yeah, I got it.
Great, be good.
Okay, if there's no objection, in 3 seconds, I'm gonna move on to the next thing. Okay, the next item on the agenda is 250-10DD, which is funding for services, which we are, which related to van payments, which we no longer will have now. Thank God. And so this policies, we're being asked to make it obsolete. It's 250-10DD. It'll be obsolete and put on our obsolete list if nobody has an objection. So that's that. The next item on the agenda is outlier funding request system. And the same goes for that one, which is that we are asking that one made obsolete because it related to van payments, which we are no longer doing. So if I don't hear an objection, that's going to be made obsolete and put on our obsolete list. Okay. The next item on the agenda is discharge planning for those leaving for an immediate care facility. And that's the last policy in our list, right?
It is, other than the ones I'm gonna report on.
Right.
Do you want me to
Yeah,
walk through it a little?
yeah, you can take this one. I don't, because I didn't see anything special needed to change on this one. I just
Right, so So what I tried to do is 73801. There's a specific service of transitional case management that can be billed when somebody's leaving an institutional placement and moving into the community, right? So this policy is really about people who live in institutions or intermediate care facilities who want to participate in home and community-based waivers and live in community settings. So I didn't change the programmatic service part of this directive. I really changed the billing, because what used to happen is a case manager would do that transitional service and they would report it to DDSN, who would then bill it as the provider of record. And in the new direct billed world, what will happen is those waiver case managers will bill that service directly to HHS. So I really, I will say that after working with HHS on this policy, we need a little more time with it to get it exactly right. There were some questions about when you can bill on their end, but the point in putting this on the agenda is that as of April 1st, if a provider followed the process and the policy for reporting to us, we wouldn't be able to pay them or bill HHS. So I really just kind of need the policy committee's approval to work with HHS to change that billing portion of that directive.
So we're just going to defer this staff, and then we'll bring it to the commission.
Correct. I don't think it'll be able to come tomorrow.
Oh, of course not.
There's a little bit of minutia. My thing is, I need to be able to communicate to the provider network ahead of April 1st that they cannot follow the billing process in this policy, because we won't be able to pay them that way, right? That's
So,
And we'll be able to get back to them and tell them before April 1st what we're.
we'll be able to tell them what to do. I just wanted to bring it to your attention because the process is outlined in a directive, which is not typical. Like usually we do some more of these procedural things in a procedural manner. It happens to be outlined in here, like exactly how they submit information to us to get paid. I need to take that out.
Do you want us to make that out? You want us to make that section obsolete today?
The problem is I don't want to make the whole policy obsolete. It's just a portion of the policy.
Right. Well, can't we just take that out?
We could just take out the billing portion, and I can have that ready for the commission tomorrow. It just won't tell them how to bill. We'll have to do that through like a memo or something.
my question is, do we have any, when you do that, do we have any oversight responsibilities?
Yes.
How would that affect that pullout?
It's still included in the waiver case management standards, which is kind of the policy over how services are delivered. It's a type of waiver case management. Just so you know too, it's not a type that's delivered on a regular basis, which is why I think it ended up in a directive to begin with. It's not typical, like as a case management agency, I might only bill for this service one time in a course of 2 or 3 years.
So basically, so that I'm clear, the oversight policy still applies.
It does.
Okay.
It does. And again, what is allowable and what is not allowable is written in the waiver case management policy. So it's not like the piece that I want to pull out is, in order to get paid, this is the form you fill out and this is who you send it to, because that's what's in this directive.
What's wrong?
Right.
Okay, well, that's fine. I just want to make sure.
Why don't we just take it out today, or
Okay.
make we'll say that if there's no objection, we'll take it out today.
Okay.
And then next month, we will
Figure out what to add.
put in the proper thing, and we'll bring it up next month.
Okay.
But today we'll approve it without public comment or anything else,
Okay.
which we obviously have the power to do.
Okay.
So, we'll approve it with no further anything,
Okay.
as it is with that section taken out, which is what section?
So it's on page 46, and it's going to be the second. Let's see, starting with activity should be recorded. So the rest of that paragraph comes out, including the form, which is report of case management services rendered for ICF IID discharge planning, and a copy of the case notes.
What page is that again? Sorry.
46. So we can just take that piece out of it and then leave it as is otherwise, and then that way we take away the form and the ability to turn that in
Right.
payment. And and then we can just communicate with them, that they need to bill that directly.
We'll fix the policy next month.
Sure.
It's fine. So anyway, if there's no objection, that's what we're going to do. We're going to take out this section, and then, and it'll be approved immediately upon my saying that it's been approved, unless there's an objection. And then next month, we will consider bringing it back up again. More than likely we will, or the next month, or whenever we decide as a committee that we'd like to do that, primarily whenever Lori decides we'd like to do that. So, so that's the way we'll handle this. So in other words, if there's no objection to what I just said, we will do what I just said. That having been said, the next item on the agenda is
That's an update from me. I
a
think.
status update from Lori. Yes, sorry.
So we have 3 directives that we hope to have ready for public comment by the end of March. After that, external review period, we'll bring them to the commission for approval and signing. Those directives are 125 DD, which is disaster preparedness, 60302 DD, which is employee health requirements, and 60305 DD, which is a policy for the management of occupational exposures of healthcare personnel and bloodborne pathogens.
Okay. If there's no objection to what she just said, then if there's no other business to come before our commission, or sorry, for our committee, to use the right words, somebody's gonna hear from somebody if I don't, so.
We stand adjourned. We stand adjourned then, don't we, Chairman?
Well, not quite, because I want to say the next meeting date. We
Okay.
almost adjourned, but the next meeting date is April 12th, which should be the second Tuesday.
Yeah, our normal time.
So we're back, so that was what I was saying earlier to those that are listening to me. We are back to normal next month in April. So there'll no longer be any more April Fools, because April is correct. So, so with that, I will say that the meeting will likely be 3 o'clock as it normally is, but that could change. So bear that in mind for those that have emails. And if you want to be obviously put on our email list to tell you when our policy, I should have said this a long time ago, or 2 years ago, but if you want to be put on our list for email list to tell you when our next committee meeting is and that sort of thing, please let the staff here know. Don't let me know, because I have other things to do. So, but let them know. So, and we will go from there. So with that, I will say that this meeting stands adjourned unless there's an objection, which somebody does need to say, somebody does need to make a motion to adjourn, I think.
So moved.
Okay, we're adjourned because we had a motion to adjourn. Thank you.
Thank you.